The cinematic church of horror is a cathartic and challenging sanctum for its congregation. In this timeless chamber, the wind of cultural history whispers through stone walls, decorated with the iconography of symbolic and supernatural power. This is a spiritual screen chosen by an audience who willingly seek confrontation with death, supernatural forces, and the primal fear of the unknown. House of Leaves Publishing presents a collection of writings exploring the cultural history of religion in horror cinema. Scared Sacred, Idolatry, Religion, and Worship in the Horror Film is edited by Rebecca Booth, author of The Devil Rides Out, part of the Devil's Advocate series from Mature Publishing. Aaron Thompson, owner and editor of the Backseat Driver Reviews, and R.F. Todd, managing director of House of Leaves. The book developed in response to the recent reclaiming of the fusion between supernatural and religious themes in mainstream horror cinema and brings together leading critics, historians, and writers in the horror community to tackle this theological topography. In addition to an introduction by author and theologian Professor Douglas E. Cohen, the book also features a foreword from actor and author Doug Bradley, who brought to life perhaps the most iconic figure in religious horror cinema. Thematically, the book is divided into 4 sections to provide a well-rounded analysis of world religion, idolatry, and worship, covering a diverse range of subjects from atheism to auditory hallucination, martyrdom to medieval witch, and zealotry to zolatry. The outpouring of support and interest in Scared Sacred has been heartwarming, and we hope you enjoy the book. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We couldn't have picked better company. Welcome back to the United Nations of Horror. I'm Jason, and tonight I am joined by Mark. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Looking forward to this. We've been planning this for a while, haven't we? But technology and the curse and all sorts have stopped us. We finally got here, so I am looking forward to this one.
I am as well. We have indeed been planning this one for a while. And speaking of technological curses, Becky, how have you been?
Hello. Yes, that's me. Sorry, my fault. It's been an issue with technology, and also I've not been too well, so I apologise for my voice tonight. But yeah, I'm very excited to be back and to be talking about Horrody Commas.
Indeed.
Yeah, Horrody. And you don't have to apologise for your voice, Beck.
Absolutely not.
It sounds awful anyway. You're all right.
No.
She walked straight into that.
We're just happy you could make it, and I know last episode we did was on nuns, which of course we managed to keep that pretty lighthearted and funny, but we figured we'd follow up with some Horrody Commas indeed, so always fun. So, we're going to count down from 10. Mark, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so for first one on my List-O-Mania list of Horrody Commas, top 10 of all time, my number 10 is a film called Ghostbreakers. This is a Bob Hope film. It's got very many similar sort of elements and tropes and same kind of comedy as the one we covered, which was Cat and the Canary, with Bob Hope and Paulette Goddard. She's also in this one. Ghostbreakers is one that deals with Haitian voodoo and zombies. And I really love this one. Have either of you guys seen it?
I've not.
Becky?
Yeah, I think so, a long time ago.
Another quite a good character in this is played by Willie Best, who's a black actor stroke comedian who's terrific in this. He's basically Bob Hope's kind of servant, but he's gives as good as he gets, and he's really good. And actually, Bob Hope once said, "The funniest man I know is Willie Best." So that's a big tribute from someone like Bob Hope. Willie Best is really good in this, and once seen, never forgotten kind of guy. He's really good in this, and this one's a lot of fun. And there's like it's a really great, it's Bob Hope, right? So you get good lines like, and he goes. He says things like that. If you feel someone behind you, don't worry, that's me. No, what's he say? He says something like to Willie Best, if something passes you, don't worry, it's me. And he goes, yeah, and if something black passes you, it's me. It's kind of stuff like that. Oh. It's very funny. And Paulette Goddard's gorgeous again in this one, and she's very funny too. So, and it's very atmospheric. It reminds me in its look and feel a bit like Val Lewton films. It's got that kind of look, very, well directed, good use of shadows, spooky old houses, plantations, all that. It's really good. Did you like it, Becky? Do you remember it?
Isn't this the film that is based on the radio play, and the actual film has a connection to radio?
Yeah. Well, hold on. Was it in Cat and the Canary? Wasn't he like an actor on the radio?
Yeah, I was going to say it's very similar, and that's I definitely watched him about.
It's not the same character though, is it? He was Larry in.
Yeah. But very, very
honestly,
similar.
I could have put Cat and the Canary here. It's just I thought we've already talked about that. And I wanted to talk about Ghostbreakers. I think I remember, let's put it this way, I remember Cat and the Canary more distinctly because I think I've seen it more times, but Ghostbreakers is as good as, if not better than Cat and the Canary, and it's really worth a look. I think Willie Best's addition into the comedy really helps. That's why I really like this one. And the zombies pretty scary. The scary stuff's scary in this too. That has to be said. Which is a good thing for Horrody Commas, right?
Yeah, and I don't think you can ever go wrong with Bob Hope.
No, his early stuff is gold. Yeah, for sure.
Always funny. Becky, your number 10.
Okay, so my number 10, and you may not be surprised, is Night of the Creeps, because if Tom Atkins isn't on my list saying Thrill Me, what am I here for? So...
Of course, Night of the Creeps. Yeah.
So it's so much fun, and watching it back now, I'm definitely uncomfortable with some of the depictions of sexuality and disability, as in a lot of 80s horror. But Atkins is amazing and beautiful, and yes, it's a really fun film that I watch quite a lot. And I compare it to Return of the Living Dead. I find them very, very similar, and I think they're a great pairing together.
Yeah, it's not one I've only ever seen it once. It's like a lot of 80s films I know backwards, like Return of the Living Dead. But for some reason, I've only ever seen Night of the Creeps once. I've quite enjoyed it, but I have very vague memories of it. Is there something about a poodle in it, or am I dreaming?
Yes, if I remember correctly, yes.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. I think I have also seen this once, but Mark, like you, I don't have a whole lot of memories of it, so... I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and watch it again because, I am a big fan.
It's Tom Atkins. Come on.
Yeah, Tom
Atkins, so it's watchable, right?
And I have to say, thank you to Mark for sending me a gift in which I have a T-shirt now that actually states "Too old for Tom Atkins," which I try. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's all right. You're very welcome.
Oh, man.
I couldn't let that one go.
At the end to be, my 35th year. Thanks very much. Great.
Well, Tom Atkins, he's a bit,
Not
fussy.
true. Once you're over 18,
Yeah, that's too old then,
That's terrible.
It really is. I'm going to get hate mail for this episode.
It's not you, it's Tom Atkins, all right? No one cares. No one minds that Tom Atkins is
You're right.
He gets a pass. No one else does, but Tom Atkins, yeah.
Yep, it's because of the stash.
Yeah.
He's so beautiful. And also, he's in, if you haven't watched it, on Shudder, the, what's it called? The 80s horror doc. Is it In Search of the 80s?
Oh, I just started that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really nice overview. Like, it doesn't go into too much detail. And I've heard a few people say, like, if if you're very knowledgeable about 80s horror, you won't really glean much from it. But also, like I say, it's just a really nice overview of everything. It's nice to stick on in the background and just have on. And he's on it a few times, and he's adorable. So, yeah, it's great.
He just gets better with age, right?
He really does. It's like a fine wine.
There you go.
I just noticed Shane Black is in the cast list. That's weird. From Predator. Well, the guy that wrote Predator and many other great films like Lethal Weapon and so on. He's in it as a cop. He must be friends with Fred Decker, the director, right? That's all I've heard.
Yeah.
Interesting. So another one to add to the list to check out. And I will go next. My number 10 for best Horrody Comma of all time. I'm going to start out at number 10 with Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, nice.
I know we've covered that in long form here before. So, I mean, what more can you say about it? Like, really as far as the 2000s go, I feel like this is just one of those films that kind of sparked the zombie craze,
Yeah, also, not only is it a comedy, it's effective as a horror, and it's also effective as a homage without being a pastiche. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And there's some just lovely little touches for real fans, We're coming for you, Barbara. Things like that, right? It's just really nice.
Oh, yeah, it definitely pays that proper respect to the greats, but then, it stands on its own, and as you say, it's also genuinely scary at certain parts as well. So, I've seen this film at least 10, 15 times probably, and it never gets old. So,
yeah, and every single zombie comedy movie has to, be compared to Shaun of the Dead, and very few of them are even close, right? That has to be said.
I would definitely agree. I mean, it's kind of hard now. I almost feel bad for anyone who is sort of attempting to spoof on zombie movies. I mean, I guess you could say probably Return of the Living Dead was sort of the original spoof, maybe, but
I think it was. It came first, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think Shaun of the Dead sort of just, it was just that film that, like I said, just sort of put that big spark to the fire, and since then we've had so many zombie movies and zombie comedies.
Well, that's what they are.
Zombies.
In fact, I think the first zombie comedy I can think of, if you can call it that, is probably George Romero himself in The Creepshow, actually.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
The zombies or undead or something. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead really got the synthesis right? Just works.
It did. And real quick.
And it's really clever as well.
Good choice.
Yes, the Winchester. Gonna wait at the Winchester, have a pint, and wait for this all to blow over. That's what I say about current events too.
Everyone says that. Let's go down to Winchester. Yeah.
Totally. And even with Nick Frost's character, there's a bit where he's talking to Sean and he tells him, what we're going to do about, losing his girlfriend and whatever. And the whole scenario that he presents is actually what happens in the film, which I didn't realize until watching again. It's so clever.
It's very clever, yeah. It was Edgar Wright, wasn't it? I mean,
it was, yes.
Films are clever by nature. They just are. He just constructs them very well.
Yeah, so much fun. And with that...
And also, sorry, just to say, if you haven't caught Spaced, definitely watch the series, because I think it was one of those episodes that actually sparked the idea for the film.
Oh, really?
Very British,
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen Space, and I do like it, but I can't remember a specific episode being some sort of prototype.
He's up all night playing video games and hallucinates like a zombie apocalypse. And I think,
he's playing Resident Evil. Yes.
And I think that Edgar Wright actually, it happened to him, his girlfriend went away for the weekend or something and said, don't be playing video games. And of course he did all night, but maybe more than a day. And he was so kind of wiped. He went to the shop the next morning when nobody was around. And that was how he kind of thought of the scene where Sean goes to the newsagents.
Oh, that's awesome.
I thought it was brilliant.
And that is my
anyone
favorite
who's played
scene.
video games all night, you will have kind of weird flashbacks the next day about what you've been playing. It just happens. I remember playing Doom all night, and going to work the next day. And I went to an empty office because I was working on the Saturday because some of it was urgent, but I'd played Doom all night. And I was imagining demons and floating heads coming out of doorways as I was walking down these empty corridors. It was a quite big empty building. And it was like, oh, this is freaky. I'm not doing that again. But of course I did.
Oh, yeah. We all do every now and again, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, over to you. Your number 9, please.
And number 9 is one we've covered at length fairly early on. In fact, it started a whole slew of episodes for us. And the one I'm talking about is The Great Old Dark House. Ooh. That one from 1932 that spawned our series, Children of the Old Dark House. And we've had lots of pleasure watching that series, I think. But the first film is still the best. It's one of those ones that define a genre, but has never been bettered than that genre. You know what I mean? It's one of those. It's it's just so fun, right? Old Dark House, the cackling old lady, the mad brother, everything about it. It's just wonderful and weird, and still stands up. It's quite a tribute from a film from 1932 can still talk my children. What they're young adults, and they really dug it too. It's quite the film to be able to do that from 1932. Not many films can do that.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of listing it as a Horrody Comma, but it really is in many ways.
It's extremely dark.
It is.
Old Dark House.
Yeah. But man, and when we first covered it, it was a first watch for me. And even now, I go back to it very often, sometimes just to have on in the background, because it is just such a fun, almost, it doesn't get the credit it deserves, I don't feel. It should be there with Dracula and Frankenstein, Wolfman, and, all those great classics.
Yes, it gets forgotten in the Universal Pantheon, mainly because there isn't a monster, I think. But it really stands up as a film. It's really good.
Yeah, I thought it would be higher up your list, actually. And again, like you say, it's definitely touched on, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Spider Baby to the episode Home from the X-Files. It's touched everything.
All sorts. I'll stick an old lace if you want to go into more comedies. There's loads. There's loads. I mean, I was kind of tempted to put in, at this point, I was kind of trying not to do all the same. I'm trying to mix it up a bit, and I was kind of tempted to put in Bride of Frankenstein at this point, because that, again, is also a Horrody cover. But honestly, for me, Old Dark House just about trumps it. So I've decided to put in Old Dark House.
Well, that's a really good point, just to touch on that really briefly, is that, there's lots of films that are, very clearly Horrody Commas, but there are other horror films that have distinct comedy tones, but might also not be argued to be comedies. Yeah. So just to kind of throw that distinction out there, that I think we've navigated this personally. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
these are personal lists for sure. Some people would, like, as you touched on, Jason, some people wouldn't even consider this in terms of a sort of Horrody Comma. It's more a sort of mystery. Is it even a horror film? Even maybe, it's those kind of things.
Some would say it's maybe a thriller, but it's all those things, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's all those things. It jumps around. It defies genre, really. It is its own genre. That's the thing, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, think of some of the mad ones, like Girly. That was mad. But it's an old dark house film. That's what it is. It's not a thriller. It's not a horror. It's an old dark house film. There we go. So, Spider Baby 2, right? So, yeah.
Oh, man. I would watch it for sure. All right. Becky, if we could get your number 9 for best Horrody Comma of all time.
Well, continuing that vein there that Max just mentioned, I'm going to say De La Morte, De La More, and I've mentioned this before, from 1994, also known as Cemetery Man. It's a comedy horror directed by Michele Savi, who also was, he directed the Church, or The Sect, and he was in Demons. He was the masked person giving out the tickets, and it's convoluted, metaphysical, philosophical. It's about a cemetery caretaker in Italy who succumbs to kind of encroaching madness as the dead start to rise from the graves, including his love in various guises, and the film just goes off from there. And it's Rupert Everett in the main role. And Rupert Everett was the inspiration for the Italian graphic novel from 1991. So it's really, a great kind of serendipitous turn of events that he became the actual lead of the film eventually.
Yeah. Rupert Everett's very watchable, isn't he? I haven't seen this film, but I have written it down to watch because you mentioned it before, and I remember writing it down before.
Yeah, it's somewhere on my list.
I do want to
well.
get to this one. Yeah. And I remember the first time he talked about it, I was like, I thought that was just a horror film. I didn't realise it was a comedy. So, yeah, I do need to get back to this.
Definitely. And I think it would be a nice, maybe Such Sights episode in future.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
Save it till then, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. For my number 9, I went with something a little bit different. I'm not... Gosh, I should have looked this up beforehand, but the film is Monster House, and I want to say it's a Disney... it's done in that vein. Anyway, it's from the same people who did Polar Express, and what I love about this film is, the kids are legitimately funny. The house, though, is actually truly a living haunted house, again, going back to the old dark house. And the house itself is actually quite scary. Like, I was kind of surprised they got some of the stuff they did in this film. But it is quite funny, and, it's a fun film that you can take and, you can show it to kids or loved ones, and they'll enjoy it as well. But
yeah, I've not seen it. I did buy it for my kids when they were children because they wanted to see it, and I'm not sure they actually ever watched it. I'm not sure if it hasn't been unwrapped, but I do remember the poster being quite effective, quite sort of scary looking. It looked like a face on the house, and it also, when we watched the Haunting in the Hill House, the remake, 1999 remake, that terrible one, there was something about that house that made me think of Monster House.
Yeah,
actually. But I haven't actually seen it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you get time, I would recommend it, especially if you're looking for something light. And it's a great Halloween movie as well. Something to watch during October. But it had me legitimately laughing at quite a few jokes with a lot of the kind of horror aimed at children. Oftentimes the jokes really kind of fall flat for adults, and this film, it didn't do that. I thought it actually, it was quite respectful of its adult and the children in the audience as well. All right, so we are going to hit number 8. And Mark, it is your turn. Your number 8 for best horror comedy of all time.
Okay, well, mine is not just a horror comedy; it's a musical too, and it's quite highly rated for me personally. These are personal lists, as Becky made the point, and I really like this because I saw a stage production of it, which is by far one of the greatest stage productions I've ever seen in my life, and it was fairly recent as well. It is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's a film of two halves. There's always, almost everyone who watches it, there's a point where they kind of become a bit disengaged because the plot kind of becomes a bit less fun and less coherent. But that first half is amazing, and I think all the songs stand up all the way through. I kind of do believe the plot disintegrates somewhat within the second half, and as I say, it depends where you think it is. It is truly like that. And I did go on this recently, on another podcast recently, which was, I'm trying to remember, it's either Stinking Paws or Real Britannia, and I'm sorry, I can't remember which one. Talked about with the guys on that at length about how much I like Rocky Horror Picture Show. But if someone wants to go away and have a look at that, you can do that, and you can hear me talk about this film for an hour odd, if you wish. But I really, really enjoyed this. Tim Curry is so good. He is so good as Frankenfurter. But I just really like the picture, and I really like the stage version too. And some of the songs are just amazing. So I really, this is a personal choice. It wouldn't certainly. I don't think it would make many people's Horrody Commas top tens.
You know, this is one of those films that's been on my list for a while now, and I keep trying to get back to it. But then I know we've talked about it, Mark, on here before, where I think you've mentioned that it's really fun to see with an audience rather than just, you know, viewing it by yourself or with family.
Well, the stage version is, and I imagine that if you were to go to a cult viewing, it will be a lot of fun too, where people. But the thing is, I don't understand all the references, or all the jokes that come out. But I'm just, I'm used to it because I've seen the stage version a few times. People shout certain things at certain times, and it really. I think the stage version, it really depends on how good the narrator is. There's always a narrator. It's Charles Gray, the great Charles Gray in the film, but the narrator can really sort of help with manage the audience, because there's a lot of to and fro between the narrator and the audience as well. He's the one that breaks the fourth wall, so that helps a lot. Anyway, I've gone on way too much about that. But yes, I really dig this film. I really like the music a lot. It's amazing. The time warp is about 10 minutes in, and it's such a good song. And interestingly, if you read critics at the time, that was a point a lot of them started walking out and saying, "Oh, this is a terrible film. The songs are terrible." And it's like, what? It's like, what? What do you what better songs are there than the Time Warp? Please tell me them. I'd like to know.
And like any Halloween showing of a film, any local theatre here in the UK, you're bound to get Rocky Horror Show with it, the kind of sing along.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and kids like it too. It's an odd film because it can be a bit gory, but the musical numbers are just fun. They're rock and roll basically, right? So they're just fun.
Very cool. I think that's a great choice, honestly. It's definitely a well-regarded film, and it seems to be sort of a love-it-hate-it film as well. So, but I think it's definitely an interesting one, and yet another one that I've got to see at some point. So who knows? Maybe we'll get it here in long form at some point too.
I think we should do that as a such sites as well, because I've never seen it all the way through.
Oh, sorry. I thought we'd already done this as a. Oh, we haven't, have we? We haven't.
He's so old.
No, it's because I've been on other shows talking about it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we've talked about it on here,
in the past.
Yeah, but we've yet to do it. So there's still so much more to do here on UNH.
yes, we'll cover it. So I think we should do it soon.
Yeah, I agree.
My mistake.
Especially with Halloween coming up, that'd
be really nice.
Be a really good time.
Maybe even that might be a nice one to do, Jason, on Twitch.
Ooh, yes. That would be a lot of fun with next watch.
Bring Mark up into the 21st century there with the technology.
Shut your face.
Oh man. I feel the love.
No,
we missed you. Seriously, Matt, we missed you on Twitch. We really did.
Yeah, I was busy that. I'm sorry. I would have liked to. I've used Twitch. I've used Discord.
Well,
I've used Discord, but similar sort of thing, isn't it? I think I've got a Twitch account, but I don't use it for other than getting freebies on video games. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm game for that, for sure.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. We really didn't promote the first watch along very well, just to listeners who maybe are not a part of the Facebook group. But one of the main reasons for that was, and I'll be really brief with this, I just did not know if it would work that well or not. And thankfully, we didn't have really any major technical issues. So the next one
How does it work then? Does Twitch also share the video?
You can set it to share the video or not to share it.
What was it that time? Was it just talking, or was it sharing the video? Because I should imagine there's copyright. If you got to be careful.
You do. So I had to make sure the films we showed were public domain. So I would have to definitely make sure, confirm with whatever we show. But there's a lot
be
of
all right
great
with
stuff in there.
Nosferatu and Night of the Living Dead, but we're not sure otherwise, right?
Right, and we did Dracula because that's in the public domain.
Is it? Right,
and
okay.
Dracula in Espanol, of course. That was
and thank you to Tim Hutton and Bruce Hanan for joining us, and I apologise if I've got your name wrong there, and other people, but because of their handles I didn't know who it was, but I definitely knew they joined right to the end with Bruce, so
nice.
Thank you very much.
Was it
really enjoyed it.
Or was it typing?
It's just
typing.
Okay, that's
we
fun.
can
that is a lot
talk,
of fun.
If you want to get your trousers out on.
Get my trousers out. Now, Becky, because Tom Atkins has been raised.
I just want to say that tonight was the first time in how many years that we've actually turned the actual cameras on, just for Mark, who showed us what he was wearing. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, I had trousers on.
There are going to be a lot of jealous listeners out there now. So, well, Becky, over to you for your number 8, please.
Number 8 is Carry On Screaming.
Ooh, it's funny you mentioned that.
From 1966.
I just watched that this past Saturday, actually. Oh, what a good choice. They were actually playing it on, shout out to Monster Kid Radio and their watch-alongs. They actually happened to be showing that, and oh, man, so wonderful. Sorry to interrupt, but go ahead. I'm getting giddy over this film here.
Exactly, and it's a huge part of my childhood. I watched the Carry On films with my nan growing up. She instilled a love of genre in me, and we used to watch the Carry On films. I think it was on a Saturday night, really late at night, and obviously the horror film in the entry the horror entry in the series was the one that really, really spoke to me, and it's from 1966. I think it's 12th in the list of Carry On films, and it was directed by the long-standing director Gerald Thomas, and it's just so magical in the way that it parodies Hammer horror in particular, and it's just so knowledgeable in terms of its references and aesthetics.
I think it's helped a lot by Harry H. Corbett, who is not a Carry On regular, but he is a really good actor. He's very underrated actor, and I think he just brought something to it. The others are great, but they're not actors. Do you know what I mean? Whereas he was like proper, and he's a good comedy actor too, so it just really, really worked. I still laugh my head off at many of the lines. I can hear them over and over again. But one of my favourites is that I promise you I'm going to go back to my mother and keep on like this, and he goes, promises. That's amazing.
No, completely, and that's it. The films on this list, like so many of them, like genuinely make you laugh again and again.
Yeah,
and I think that's a really, it's very personal, I think. Which Mac touched on, but this film just I think spoke to so many people, because even outside of the UK, because it parodied Hammer horror, and I've heard for example Scorsese talk about how effective Hammer horror was on his kind of cinematic upbringing. So they're just so important, I think.
It's interesting. I didn't know Scorsese was a Hammer guy, but there are definitely some of his films that look like a Hammer colour palette, a lot of reds.
100%, yes. And I would love to read, I'm sure there's been something done about it, but, I was actually just looking today on Twitter, somebody was talking about palettes, and I was actually thinking about Scorsese, and I'd love to see, to read something about that analysis.
Yeah, and funnily enough, Carry On Screaming also uses quite effectively, as you kind of said, the Hammer palette very well, doesn't it? It kind of works. Such a good film. Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we've discussed this one in long form as well, and you can check out the archives for that, but oh man, it's one I could definitely talk about again, all day. It's just so much fun, and one of those just terrific films. Okay, so my number 8, I'm going to sneak 2 in here. I'm going to cheat a little bit, just because the sequel has recently come out, and that is Zombieland and Zombieland 2. And they were both made quite a few years apart. I want to say like 10 years apart, but...
I think more like 15.
Was it that long? Wow.
Something like that. I know it was long.
Yeah, definitely. But I really, particularly the first Zombieland, I really, really love that one. You have the two girls on the run, the guy, the kid who's scared of everything, essentially. I say kid, but he's like probably 18, and then you have, Woody Harrelson, who is just the badass, and he plays it perfectly, and of course you think his only goal in life is to find a Twinkie, so, amongst the zombie apocalypse.
It's a really fun film, Zombieland. Zombieland 2 is pretty decent, but it's not quite as good as Zombieland. Zombieland 1 feels more iconic.
Yes.
And it's it's one of the ones that approach Shaun of the Dead, in my opinion. It's one of that kind of level. There's some good stuff in it, yes.
Yeah, that being said, I don't know that there would be a Zombieland if it wasn't for Shaun of the Dead. In fact, I would think probably not.
No, probably not.
But, but definitely worth seeing even now, I think. And the CGI blood doesn't really hold up that well, but otherwise, I still really.
But it's okay. You can overlook it. It's a comedy, so it's not. It doesn't really take you out of it.
Exactly. So yeah, lots of fun there. And with that, we are on to number 7s. Mark, your number 7, please.
My number 7's a pretty straightforward one. It's 80s. Through and through. Ghostbusters.
My
the
goodness.
music, the vibe, Bill Murray being a real dick.
Oh yeah.
And there's even like ghost blowjobs and all sorts. It's kind of fun. We've got Slimer running around. There's some comedy stuff with Harold Ramis is there. I just really like this film. There's very little to not like about it. It just rocks really, and the theme tune's great. So I haven't really got much more else to say about that.
Man.
I think it's my second favourite Bill Murray film. I think Groundhog Day probably trumps it, but Ghostbusters is really high for me.
That is good stuff. I mean, that's my childhood right there. One of the first films I probably ever saw where I was really like, okay, this is a real movie, compared to a TV show. And I'm sure over the years, there's no doubt probably one of the reasons I'm into horror is Ghostbusters, since that was one of the films I was allowed to watch as a kid,
Yeah. I mean, touching on that, I think Horrody Commas are a massive gateway for kids into horror.
Yeah.
Actually, I think loads of kids come to horror through Horrody Commas. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s as well.
Yeah,
that followed the films. That was an influence.
Yeah, but even before that, Scooby-Doo and stuff like that,
Yes.
I could see it.
Yeah.
Yep. And also, Twed, if you haven't watched it, the Netflix series, I think it's called The Movies That Made Us.
Yes.
I've watched the toys that made us, and that's great. Is there a movies that made us?
There is, yeah, and it covers Ghostbusters, which is an amazing episode. And the fact that this got made was just crazy, considering the obstacles that it was facing.
Yeah.
As well as the other films on the list, which I think were It's Dirty Dancing,
Home Alone, I think.
Home Alone, yes, and Die Hard. There you go.
Yes, Die Hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
But a great series, and just shows how, how delicate the process is for getting these films made. Like, so many of these films wouldn't have been made had it been for something very simple, very specific. It's really crazy.
Yeah,
it's usually a studio exec is taken with the idea. That's what it usually comes down to.
Oh, even more so, literally, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, good stuff. The whole documentary series, easy for me to say, is done very well. I've also watched the Home Alone episode. I need to watch the Die Hard one still. Dirty Dancing, maybe eventually.
I think Luna Mist will like that one.
I think so too. I think so as well.
Yeah, I'd like it. I'd watch it.
And true, yeah. Even between for example, just to throw that out there, I did not know that what's she called? I'm going to say Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I don't mean that. Sarah Jessica Parker and what's it called? From Twin Peaks, Billy Zane. Both auditioned for Dirty Dancing and did actual takes together.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Exactly. And you
I want to
that
see those
in the
takes.
Exactly.
Oh man, I'm gonna watch.
You see them in the documentary, so worth it for that. I was like, what?
I just got to say that, Jason, you are allowed to watch chick flicks with Patrick Swayze in. Patrick Swayze is your get out of jail free card. So Ghost and Dirty Dancing are terrific.
There you go. I mean,
Ghost is better.
The guy did Roadhouse, so you're allowed, right?
yeah. Roadhouse cancels all.
Indeed.
And now I've mentioned Ghost, I'm just adding it to my honourable mentions list because I completely forgot about it. 100%. Anyway,
yes.
Oh man, that one scene. We'll talk about it when we get there. But Becky, your number 7, please.
Okay, so my number 7 is The People Under the Stairs from 1991.
Ooh, good one. Wes Craven.
Interesting choice. I wouldn't have thought of it as comedy, but it's absolutely manic, right?
Yeah,
so,
it is. That's a good word for it. Yeah, and it reunites Ed and Nadine from Twin Peaks.
It does.
As Mummy and Daddy, who live in a huge house, and they're landlords to a young boy whose family's been evicted from the ghetto that he lives in, and he breaks into their house, discovers their degeneracy, shall we say, and just like you say, madness just ensues. And it's a brilliant exploration of classicism, and it just shows how brilliant Wes Craven was. He wrote this, he directed this, and there are so many layers to the film. I think it's very ahead of its time in terms of the themes that it represents, but it's also a really, really fun film.
Yes, I really like this film.
I do too. I mean, I would say, it's kind of a made for children, right? But who was
not really? I mean, there's an incestuous couple running around in bondage gear shooting through the walls at children. So maybe not.
That's true. But I guess I was going to say, who is the film really targeting? Because the main characters are kids, right? But
yeah, true, very, very true.
I think so. It's not a movie that you would think is when you watch it, you're like, okay, this is not a kids' film, is what I'm trying to say.
But who's the target? Yeah, it feels kind of an update of Fairy Tale, right? This could be a couple in the Middle Ages who are horrible landlords doing weird things to people. It's got that vibe to it as well, and it's got that logic as well. So yeah, it's kind choice. Of a fairly traditional, beating the bad guys vibe as well. It's got a very old fashioned sensibility, even though it's mad bondage stuff and all that.
100%, yeah, at its core, yeah, and like you say, it explores classicism, I should say, sorry, and yeah, but again, like you say, it's really, even though it's exploring these really dark themes, it's very light-hearted as well. It's a strange film tonally, and I think you find that a lot with Wes Craven's films.
Yeah. So he's got some really interesting ups and downs, and some films you just wouldn't expect, and there's a lot going on with Wes Craven.
Yeah,
and it's definitely a sibling of The Old Dark House, shall we say?
Yes.
Oh, no doubt about that. Yeah. Well, great choice, Becky. So my number 7, probably not going to surprise anyone really. I'm going to have to go with Army of Darkness, which I just realized when rewatching this was the first of the Evil Dead films that I saw, way back a long time ago. Had to be the 90s, probably. But Bruce Campbell, fighting the Evil Dead in medieval times, really need I say more, It's good fun.
Oh, it's definitely the most comedic of the three, though Evil Dead 2 is very funny too.
It is.
But Army of Darkness really goes out on a limb and brings in all the Three Stooges stuff and, all the goofy voices from different skeletons, all that sort of stuff going on. Really like Army of Darkness, terrific. And of course, it spawned recently Ash versus the Evil Dead in many respects. I mean, its spiritual parent is Army of Darkness, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It just feels like that. Maybe Evil Dead 2 as well, there's a bit of that. But
Army
of Darkness is terrific. Terrific choice.
Oh, thank you. I love that movie. And, even though they didn't have the Army of Darkness license, they went in and actually redid some scenes, if I recall, from Army of Darkness, which I thought was really cool that they actually, paid enough attention and cared enough to go and do that. So, it's just an old favorite. And, it shows that you can actually watch Evil Dead out of order. Because I still think the first Evil Dead is the most terrifying of the three.
Oh, yeah, it's the grimmest, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on here, Mark, number 6.
We've got our. Is it our first repeat? I think it's our first repeat. It's Army of Darkness.
Hey!
Yeah, I really, really like this one. I could have put Evil Dead 2 on here, but I think Army of Darkness is more straightforward comedy. Actually, it's got horror elements. And it's got its scary bits. I mean, the first sequence where they throw him in the pit is a bit tense before it turns into complete goofiness. But that's a hell of a fight in that pit as well. But Ash is just plain old pissed offness with everyone. It just wins out for me, really. We get full Bruce Campbell in Army of Darkness in a way we don't entirely get in Evil Dead 2. And I really like that, so that helps, right? So Army of Darkness for me.
Do you think that's when Bruce Campbell sort of came into his own? Was just like, okay, this
became Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, he was Bruce Campbell then.
Yes,
full on surly,
Yes, I like that mode, Bruce Campbell. It's fun. Anyway, so that's my number 6. Yeah.
Very cool, Becky. Your number 6, please.
Okay, so my number 6 is Scream. Which, I mean, you could argue that, you can include the sequels in this list as well. But I think particularly with the first film, beyond horror cinema, it really changed film theory. I mean, this was the postmodern film studied while I was at university, for example. And it really ushered in this 1990s meta focus on the rules and conventions of horror and forced audiences to look at their relationship with the genre itself. So, I think it's really, also, if we talk about the sequels, I think that's really beautifully captured in the opening scenes of Scream 2, via the premiere of the meta film Stab, which I absolutely love, which also implicates the viewer into thinking about their position in terms of the real racial horror as, Jada Pinkett Smith's character dies in front of them, stroke us, which is just so clever. And again, Craven's creativity just shines through there.
Yeah, Wes Craven again, as we already mentioned, and in many ways, I think it changed the fabric of audio-visual entertainment more than just talking about criticism of film. But I feel Buffy, for example, that came after it with Joss Whedon, had that kind of meta-textual element to it. Somewhat.
100%, yeah.
I agree.
And so on when you look into it. But I haven't mentioned we had some of these elements right back with Cat and the Canary as well, though, didn't we? So it was good. But Scream obviously took it to a completely another level, didn't it?
Yeah.
Referencing of conventions to sort of further the plot was quite amazing.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, such a good film, and as you say, such a game changer. I remember when this first came out, and I mean, we've talked at length how, there weren't many horror films I was allowed to watch, but I was allowed to see this one. And, it definitely kind of changed everything for horror films. And as you said, just media in general, film in general. So, yeah, one of those just absolutely terrific films. So, another great choice. So, number 6, for me, I had to stay within the Sam Raimi because I figured, if I'm going to put Army of Darkness on there, I got to put Evil Dead 2 on there, right? So,
yes.
I know I probably talked way too much about Evil Dead on UNH, as a whole. So you can probably go back and hear any of our list episodes and hear me yammer on about how great Evil Dead is. But I just love it. And, like I've mentioned before, I think Evil Dead 1 is definitely more of a straight-up horror film, whereas Evil Dead 2 leans more towards comedy while still maintaining a lot of kind of the horrific elements. So, yeah, Evil Dead 2, I had to get it on my list.
Good choice. Yeah, like you say, Evil Dead is the grimmer one. It's definitely one that I felt quite scared. I remember watching it for the first time, feeling very, very tense. Whereas Evil Dead 2, it's scary, but the laughs help ameliorate what's going on, And some of it's just disgusting humor, the eyeballs flying across the room, all that sort of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, lots of fun.
And it was interesting, the Evil Dead remake didn't really go that way, did it? It went to the grim end. It went back to the first film as its source and worked very well. It's a horror film, but it wasn't a Horrody Commas.
No, not at all.
The remake. But it was a pretty good horror film and a good remake. Interesting that they brought Bruce Campbell in right at the end for that. It didn't quite work because it was just felt tonally wrong. But, it's Ash, so who cares, right?
Yeah, exactly. Got to get more Ash in there, right?
Yeah. Evil Dead 2 is elite, though. Really good. It is. I think it's the best film of the trilogy, personally, but I just have a big soft spot for Army of Darkness.
I'd like to cover the whole trilogy at some point.
Yeah, well, we could cover the trilogy, the remake, and the TV show, right?
Ooh,
100%.
Really
and also Phantasm is one I really want to cover.
Yeah, there's 6 of those, right?
Yeah, and I haven't seen them all, so that's another one I'd really like to cover on the show.
Yeah,
I would too. I've been meaning to watch those.
Yeah, and I understand Phantasm 2, and I could have this wrong. I think it's Phantasm 2. It feels a bit almost like an inspiration for Supernatural, because it's about 2 brothers fighting them or something.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, I don't know if
I haven't seen it myself, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at it from that perspective, right? Possibly as well.
Especially as Supernatural is coming to an end this year, which I don't know how I'm gonna.
I heard.
Jason, me, you, Lunest, I don't know what we're gonna do. Seriously.
I don't either. I guess got to get.
I'm still on season 1. I'm terrible.
Oh.
Well, you've got like 19 years to watch.
Yeah, you're in a good place.
Man, I'm terrible watching old shows. I keep watching the ones I like over and over. That's the trouble. We've just finished watching Twin Peaks all over again, for example.
Nice.
Okay. Anyway.
No, I'm the same way. It's hard to add new stuff to your list because then where do you find time to go back and watch the old stuff?
Especially when you're super busy. Like the only time I'm literally watching stuff for research like all day. So, you don't get a lot of time. So 100%.
I guess I'm lucky. I've got loads of time, but I end up. You know what I watch every week? I watch a Doctor Who story. I watch Buffy and I watch Star Trek every week.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
That is a good rotation right there.
Yeah, I watch one a week, but I watch well. But having said that, Doctor Who still like 4 or 6 episodes, but they're easy to get.
I need to emulate you, Mark. I really do.
Planning.
But the planning still, even though
not having a life is really what it is.
I still don't have a life, but then you have problems, and even like your work day goes from like 7 a.m. till like midnight, and you're like,
mine doesn't do that. That's for sure.
Now we all eventually, you'll need to share with UNH your wonderful message in your wallet.
Yes.
That sounds really dirty.
I've got to share now, right? I've got to share. Right, I carry a card. Now, this might be a bit sexist, but women do not need these cards. They're only for men, right? And they say, my card says, I do what I want. And if someone challenged me on something, I'll say, sorry, I've got a permit, and I pull this out. This is, I'll do it. And it's amazing how often it works.
Yes, on multiple occasions I've seen it. That sounds
and and I just got to be clear, the reason women don't need it is because they live it. All right? That's right. Us men aren't as confident. We need some props, and that's my prop. But you'd be amazed what this gets. I've got into places with this. You wouldn't believe.
Stop there, Mark. For legal reasons.
No, it's like, you can't go in there. So I've got a permit, pull it out, and I say, okay. You think, really? But it
Oh,
works.
man. That's like your license to kill, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So awesome. So awesome.
Okay, anyway, carry.
All right. So we are in
That was
number
close.
Too funny, man. Too funny. So we're in number 5 now, and let's see. Did I go?
No, yes, you just did Evil Dead 2 for number 6, right? So my number 5 is another repeat. We it's amazing how little repeats we've had so far, right?
Yeah,
We're meant to keep a list for the List-O-Mania Hall of Fame, which we haven't done.
I know, we're terrible.
Paperwork, right? Paperwork. My number 5 is another repeat. Shaun of the Dead, which we've already talked about. Really solid, very funny comedy. Zombieland is close, and there's a couple of other zombie horrors that I really like, but Shaun of the Dead is, you can't argue that it is the best of its class, really. I don't think so. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead for me. So that's my number 5.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Becky, your number 5, please.
Okay, so my number 5 is House of the Long Shadows from 1983.
Oh, I haven't seen this one.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So this is a Horrody Commas with Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and John Carradine. So, literally what more could you want?
God, how have I not seen this?
Well, it's about a writer who bets his publisher, which I adore, that he can write a novel in 24 hours. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It takes me, as we know, about 2 years. So the publisher rents out an old house in Wales for him, and his visit is interrupted by a variety of characters. And it just goes into all different tangents. So I don't want to give anything away because it's a brilliant, brilliant film. But I would also just point out that I really would recommend. I don't know whether Mark's familiar with the director Pete Walker's filmography.
Pete Walker rings a bell.
Well, he's known for his horror, like sexploitation films, but my favourite would be Die Screaming Marianne from 1971, starring Susan George, which is really like a kind of Jalliesque British thriller. So I'd say definitely check out his work if you like this film in particular. It's very British, and like I say, it's got Lee Cushing, Price, Carradine. You need to watch this. And I think, if I'm correct, it was the last film in which Cushing and Christopher Lee were together.
Okay, yeah. Because there are other films where 3 of them are in the same film. But yes,
but I think it was the last one, and like I can't really say too much without giving a lot away about the film, but just absolutely go and watch it. I adored the film. It's very, very British. It's just brilliant. I loved it to bits, and the ending is fantastic. Vincent Price at the end, just beautiful. Loved it.
That's weird because I have a memory of this film of being as boring as shit. So I'm thinking I must be thinking of something else. I must be thinking of something. You know what? I think I'm conflating this with a terrible Kenny Everett comedy horror. That's what I think I'm doing, which I can't remember the name of. Bloodbath at the House of Death, I think it was called. Similar title, right?
Yeah.
So now you've described it, I haven't seen this. So I must be thinking of something else. I definitely haven't seen this. So yeah, all right. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was on I think it was on Amazon recently. I saw it, but definitely one to check out. And in terms of we talk about the meta elements within Scream and such that really changed the genre. Even films recently, as recently as Resolution that we've talked about again on the podcast.
Yeah.
This film really plays not on, I would say, narrative rules and conventions, but the actual actors and their roles within the films.
Yeah.
More so than I think modern fare. So for 1983, it really pushes the boat out a little bit. And again, like I say, the fact that somebody can write a fantastic best-selling novel in 24 hours, I was like, haha, wonderful. But yeah, no, it's
okay. I've written that down. I will try and find it.
Yeah, I think this is going to have to go to the top of my list too.
Okay.
This one out. All right. Well, sounds great. Number 5 for me is What We Do in the Shadows, the New Zealand film. And also has inspired quite a funny television series.
Yes,
And,
really good TV series.
Yeah, we've covered this long form on here, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but it's, it's basically, hey, here's what if there were vampires in modern day society in New Zealand, with a camera crew kind of documenting their every move. So, hilarity.
Yeah, I love this one. This is, I think, possibly my favourite comedy in maybe the last 5-10 years. I can't remember when it was made now. It's actually older than you think. I always get amazed when I look up the year it was made. It's like, it was what? It feels like it was 2 years ago. So I'm not going to look it up. But yeah, it's a really funny. There's bits in it that just, will make me not stop laughing for a long time. Yeah, in fact, it inspired 2 series. Did you know? There's another one called Wellington Paranormal, which is centered around, the cops that visit, and the lady and the male cop that visit and don't realise anything's wrong.
Yeah,
it centers on those guys doing investigating weird stuff in Wellington.
Oh wow. Okay,
it's okay. It's not great. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the TV series of What We Do in the Shadows is way better. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the TV series just as much as the film, actually. What do you guys think of the TV series, just very briefly?
I'm going to go against the grain here and say that I really prefer the TV series to the film.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think it's got a lot of virtues. I really like the film, but the TV series has other things that make it feel a bit less of a sausage party. Let's put it that way. The lady vampire is a massive addition, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with that.
She gives her like a female perspective.
I didn't
really
realise that the young woman that she turns into a vampire is actually, what's he called? The sister of
Jonah Hill.
Yes, his sister. I didn't realise it was her.
Who's his sister?
The young woman that the female, Naja, the female vampire turns into a vampire.
Yeah.
Oh, her, yes. Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that either. I also really like the. Hold on, I might be getting this confused. Let me get this right. The psychic vampires in the TV show, right? I really like that.
That was so good.
Yeah,
it's basically an internet troll written large.
Yeah,
right?
Colin, right? That's his name, I think.
Colin. And I like the episode where he meets a female psychic vampire, and they're kind of draining energy from each other by being weird to each other. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I love the show, like I said, just as much as the film. And since we really haven't got to cover the TV show, I just thought that's why I wanted to ask you guys about kind of your take on that. But yeah.
No, I wouldn't argue the TV show's better, Becky. I think they're both good in their own way. I really like both, and I don't think one's really great, much better than the other. I think they're both really good.
Yes.
I think just the first episode, and Nandor, I think played by Kevin Novak, is like creepy paper without the crepe paper. I was like, I'm sold. That's it. And then Matt Berry, when he's got the what's it called, created like 3 sculptures, and he's like, this is my mother's vagina, his wife's vagina, and then I think he says that one of them is one of the victims of Jack the Ripper, and I'm just like, what? It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
I know. I showed my dad the series, and he was like, I don't know about this. I think probably because of that scene,
Funny enough, I was watching today the comedy series where Jermaine Clement, who's one of the main vampires in What We Do in the Shadows, the one whose nemesis is the Beast, which turns out to be his wife, Jermaine Clement. He's in like a comedy music duo called Flight of the Conchords, which was
Love
a TV.
And
I've been watching Flight of the Conchords. Yeah, I've seen it. Sorry when it first ahead. But I actually started rewatching it with my daughter today, actually, and we just went through the first 4. But yeah, Jermaine Clement is really funny in that.
Well, I didn't realise that the other guy, Brett, I can't remember his second name, but he is actually in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, really?
Is he really?
Yeah, you know the bit where Arwen decides to go back? She's going with her people to the Undying Lands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she makes the decision, no, I'm actually going back to Aragon. And there is an elf that comes to her and says, my lady. And that's actually Brit.
Wow. Small world, right?
Really, yeah. I love that series. And, it's cancelled before its time.
Yeah. What we got is pretty gold, though. Anyway, we're talking about non-horror stuff.
Yeah, now I don't know where we are.
Well, obviously their manager is the werewolf guy.
Yes, he's the werewolf guy. Well, not werewolves. We swear werewolves, not swearwolves.
And his stand-up is amazing, actually. He's really good.
Yeah. My number 4 is What We Do in the Show. There's a pattern here. I think I'm going to be able to guess what your number 4 is going to be. We've talked about it. What We Do in the Shadows is my number 4. Really great comedy, right? That's all I've got to say about that. We've already discussed it.
Indeed. Good choice, Mark. No, really, a great film, a great series as well. Becky, your number 4, please.
Okay, my number 4 is Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Mel Brooks is the king of satire, and this film uses the conventions, I would argue, of a considerable group of films with the heavily mined themes to create these really silly slapstick kind of scenarios that are completely rewatchable and endlessly funny. And that's why it's on the list, because it might not be the most creative or clever entry, but particularly as a horror fan with any knowledge of vampires in popular culture, it makes you laugh again and again.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this one.
Really?
So I have to say there is one particular scene that just cracks me out, which is the staking scene. That just makes me laugh like drains. I just laugh, and it's like, hit again, it's like, or whatever it is. It's absolute ridiculous amounts of blood flying everywhere. That bit makes me laugh. But I find it a bit. I mean, the problem is, I think I compare it to his earlier comedies, which are quite amazing, and that they're hard to kind of live up to, really. But it's okay though. I really like. Have you seen Love at First Bite? That comedy, the Dracula comedy. I kind of like that a little more, personally.
I have, but I think this is one that I came to first, and it just always stayed with me with having, again, that knowledge of vampire films and never seeing them portrayed in this way. The whole bit about, Mina, go to the door, no, Mina, you're in the closet kind of thing, and it's so stupid, it's so hilarious, and the scene with the staking and that, and the wig. And how it riffs so much, I think, because it riffs so much on Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
I think that's why I like it so much too.
Exactly, like Jason and I are of a similar age, and I think that's why it kind of resonates so much with us.
So my number 4 is Young Frankenstein, the wonderful Mel Brooks film that lovingly makes fun of the mini Frankenstein films, which we've covered a lot of the original Frankensteins in long form in our Frankenstein episode. So definitely go back and check out our archives for that. But, the reason I love this film is not only is it hilarious, but it really does, again, it just pays that homage and respect to the source material. It sort of jokes about how, it's kind of an old European setting, but suddenly there's automobiles and, maybe it's in America. Just all these little silly things that you notice when you watch Universal Frankenstein films, and it's brought to light by Mel Brooks. So I think, it's a classic in itself.
Oh yeah, this, in my opinion, is one of the classiest of comedies. Actually, it just feels so classy.
Yes,
and it's got a lot going for it. It's probably Marty Feldman was never shown in a better light than this movie, and Marty Feldman is a comedy genius who really didn't translate that well in other films. And I don't think his TV shows that were ever shown anywhere but the UK, and I think they've mostly been lost, or people just kind of forget them. But man, his Igor is a character for the ages.
Oh gosh,
for sure.
So good.
The lines he comes out with, I can help you with that hump. What hump? All that. All that stuff. It's amazing. He's so good as Igor.
It is. And, jumping ahead, that's my number 3 choice.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
to throw that in there. And again, I think that not only do we have the, writing prowess of Mel Brooks, but also Gene Wilder. And this film... Well, it's craftier, it's wittier than Dead and Loving It, and I adore the narrative turn in which Frankenstein in this film wants nothing to do with the infamous monstrous kind of transgressions of his ancestor, which is just so genius, And above everything else, just that minimal narrative play, I think, really shows not only respect for the kind of source material, but also the audience. And, Gene Wilder, you talk about the other actors who are all phenomenal in this, and we've talked about them at length before on previous episodes, but Gene Wilder is just he's glorious in this film, I think. He really is.
Yeah, this is on a par with his Willy Wonka, really, in terms of great performances by Gene Wilder. I really like this version of Frankenstein. His Frankenstein is really good. Terry Garr is also terrific. She's just wonderful in this. And there's and Peter Boyle is good as the monster, right? And we even get bloody what's his name? Gene Hackman.
Indeed, yep.
Doing a cameo, unbelievable. But man, and the black and white photography looks amazing. And they did use some of the original equipment from the original Frankenstein films too, which helped a lot. Honestly, when Sam and I covered this on our podcast, the Universal Monsters, we put Young Frankenstein in because we just felt we had to. It just felt appropriate. I think it might have been the last one we did, because there was obviously it was 50 years after the last Universal. No, sorry, 20 years after the last Universal movie, horror movie. So it was kind of, we put in Young Frankenstein just because it was so obviously, connected.
Yeah, it
owes a lot to Son of Frankenstein, right? Actually, spiritually, it feels a lot like Son of Frankenstein.
It is kind of a spiritual successor to that, but but I think it does kind of take source material from all of them, to some extent, anyway.
Mm. Oh, absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really good stuff though. I can watch this one over and over again. It's just, it's become a classic in itself.
It's always a classic. Yeah.
Yeah, people who've maybe only seen one Frankenstein film, they'll watch Young Frankenstein and be able to still refer to things in that oftentimes before the original, Universal films. So it's just kind of crazy. And I say, original Universal, but I do realize there was the Edison talkie or not talkie, but silent film. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right.
And I also have to mention, we haven't mentioned, Madeline Kahn is great, and Cloris Leachman is also great in this. Really solid.
Yeah, I don't think there's a bad cast member, or,
No.
Sometimes you can say with a movie, well, I don't know that person was bringing their A game, but I think everyone brought their A game to this.
Yeah.
It's so good. All right, so now we are on to the number 3s. So, Mark, over to you. The big 3 countdown.
All right, we're back to the 80s with this one. American Werewolf in London. One of the comedies that really is horrific.
Yes.
But it is still thoroughly a comedy. John Landis was on his A game. John Landis had a really great run of films, and American Werewolf in London was peak John Landis. The use of music was funny, but there was some really horrible, gnarly horror in this, as well as as well as comedy, and even as a film within a film, which I always like, especially this one. So yeah, I really, really like this film. I think it's it's one of the best werewolf films as well. I have a slight penchant for Dog Soldiers. It's probably my favourite werewolf film, but American Werewolf in London is probably my second favourite werewolf film ever. And this was funny and scary, right? It was nearly perfect as a film, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because, his dead friend is talking to him, and the stuff is really morbid that's going on, but at the same time, he's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
And I don't think many films can accomplish what American Werewolf in London did. Really good stuff.
And again, Rick cast really well as well, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. So, Becky, your number 3 is also Young Frankenstein, correct?
It is, yes.
All right. And my number 3 is Return of the Living Dead, which, I first came to this film not too long ago. And I think we've pretty much covered this one at length quite a few times, right?
Yeah, I think some length. It's been a while.
Has it?
I'm happy to talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always up for talking about that as well. But, just really a really good mix of comedy and scares, kind of a lot of Three Stooges moments. Mark, give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I like how it kind of ran with the Night of the Living Dead vibe, as the backstory, as it were. But then it had all this comedy stuff, and there's some clever stuff in there, like the dissected animals coming back to life, stuff like that. And not only is it horrific and funny, it was kind of sexy. I don't mean that specifically overtly, though we have Leanna Quigley running around with no clothes on. The music gave it, the music choices gave it real energy, and the sort of punk rockers in there, and also the fact the Living Dead had some sentience. They could talk. Not much, but they could talk a bit. And that was kind of interesting too. And that thing in the barrel is just amazing as well. This is a great comedy horror, I'd say.
Yeah, I definitely love it. And Becky, I know you're a fan as well.
Absolutely, yep. I agree with everything.
Cool.
The Tar Man, right? Tar Zombie.
Yes. He was really something.
Oh, man. He's probably my favorite zombie of all time. I don't know. I didn't know who he was.
Well, that's where Brains comes from, right?
It is, yeah.
The Brains doesn't appear in any other films, does it? It's this film.
And I didn't realize it until, I don't know, it probably was over a year ago that I first came to this film. I want to say it was on Netflix or Amazon, and I was like, oh man, this looks good. But as you say, like the soundtrack and everything, oh my gosh, it's out of this world good. And genuinely super, super funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's some Cramps songs, isn't there? I really like the Cramps, so that helps a lot. But I mean, I just think it's snappy as well. The other thing about it doesn't hang around at all. It just gets on with business, and everyone dies.
Yeah.
That's it, really.
Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's been around forever, but I also like the fact that it's carried through the rain, and I think that's what makes that graveyard scene so effective too. Is we as the audience know oh, these guys are really in trouble here. It starts to rain, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So fun stuff. All right, so now on to our number 2s. Mark.
Right, well, this was really tough, actually. My number 1 and my number 2 were really close, and I had to really think about it. But my number 2, I finally decided, is probably the greatest gateway movie for getting kids into horror films ever. Given when it was made and it being aired when TV was a young medium and kids seeing it, and that is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. One of the best Abbott and Costello movies, and surprisingly one of the best Universal horror films too. This is very solid. I just love Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. There's not really much to say. It's the Abbott and Costello film I've seen the most, and it's always funny with each rewatch. Can't say more than that. The guys were the timing was perfect. The ghost is given stuff to do, which is really nice. I really liked, and I love some of the lines he comes out with. Bud Abbott comes out with. Sorry, Lou Costello comes out with when he's talking to Larry Talbot. It's amazing. So yeah, really love this one.
Very good choice. Yeah, man. I didn't think of this one, but an absolute gem of a film, and genuinely funny as well. So yeah, I love this one.
Just to say, I agree, and it was Mark that turned me onto these films. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah, I want to watch more Abbott and Costello in general. To be honest with you, Becky.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
because we're so young.
There's so much we haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
exactly, as well. Do you feel better about life now? Hey, yeah. Jason? I
do. Oh man, I feel the love. I feel the love.
I'm joking.
Mark, you're just getting started, man.
Yeah, right. Caroline Monroe is there.
Yeah, I remember when I was 100 and I went to see this at the cinema when it came out. Yeah, it was great.
I do genuinely wish I could go back and see a lot of these films in the cinema. It would be so great.
I have to say, if I remember rightly, the Blu-ray of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is pretty sharp and good looking. I think they've done some restoration work on it. And I also have to say, if you've got it on Blu-ray or DVD, the commentary by, I think the chap's name's Tom Weaver, a Universal horror sort of historian, is pretty interesting. It's not funny, but it's interesting. It tells you lots of useful facts.
Yeah, it's the guy who has the kind of New York accent.
I believe so.
Yeah, he almost sounds like he could be in a mafia film or something, but he's super knowledgeable.
He's very knowledgeable. I'm not sure his accent was that strong to me.
Okay. Well, he was also on, I think this was him, on one of the Frankenstein DVD tracks I listened to last week.
Okay, he's done a few Universal commentary tracks, yes.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out, because I do have the Blu-ray, but I haven't got to the Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein film yet.
Yeah, I'm just checking it is Tom Weaver, because I know Tom Weaver's done a few. Carry on.
All
right, well, moving on. Becky, you're number 2.
Okay, so my number 2, I had to go with my favourite Nicolas Cage, and this would be Vampire's Kiss from 1989. Have you seen this?
I haven't seen this, and I didn't know it was a comedy. I thought it was a horror film.
Oh, no, it's a comedy.
Thank you. Look at, basically, I don't want to tell you anything because I want you to experience, this yourself, because it's such a crazy film. But basically, Nick Cage thinks that he's a vampire, and he runs around, New York, screaming with a plastic pair of vampire teeth in his mouth, and it's insane. Seriously, if you've not watched it, seriously, just watch it. It's amazing.
I love the fact that it's those fangs from the 80s that you would get in those little, those little vampire kits. It's here's your makeup, here's your fangs. I mean,
100%.
Oh man.
Just to be clear, right? Those are supposed to be real fangs, are they? I've seen pictures of it. But
no, they're not.
No, these are plastic.
These are
I've seen pictures, and I thought it was just terrible makeup.
No, he thinks he's a vampire. He's had a one-night stand and thinks that he's been bitten by a vampire and that he's changing and such. And it's, what's she called? Jennifer Beals from Flashdance. And, interesting film. Very interesting, but...
Vampire's Kiss.
Yeah, a fun film. If you've not watched it, definitely give it a go.
I've written it on my list. I've got 4 on my list tonight already.
Yep. Every time we do these shows, the list just gets larger and larger. So it's someday I'm going to get to all these.
Well, I didn't know, until looking into it, that Robert Behrman, who directed it, was meant to do the Fly remake. But
I'm glad he didn't.
But a family tragedy stopped him from doing so. Apparently, from what I've read, and
okay, right.
that he ended up going down this route, which is really interesting. So yeah, check it out if you like Nick Cage. And I mean, we talked about Mom and Dad.
Everyone likes Nick Cage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard he's pretty popular on this show. All right, well, great choice. For my number 2, I'm going to go with one we covered very recently on here, and that is One Cut of the Dead. Mark, I convinced you to watch this when you were my partner in crime.
Wow, this is a meta film and a half, Becky.
Oh yeah, you love it,
did you? Man, I've never seen anything like it. And I have to say, I was a little perplexed when it started. I was like, okay. Then I was impressed in terms of, this is really one cut. This is one cut. And then when the rest of it unfolds, it was like, this is unlike anything I can remember. It makes Scream seem unaware of itself. Do you know what I mean? It's so deeply into the matter in a really clever and brilliant way.
Yeah. And it's
good
very
choice.
funny.
Good choice.
Very funny. I thought anyway.
It's funny. Yes.
It's Japanese comedy, but I think that I think it's kind of universal in this film anyway. It really worked for me anyway. But I'm what the kids call nowadays. I guess the official term is weeb. So I've watched many anime films and everything, but yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So I would definitely say check this one out. We are on to our number 1 best Horrody Commas of all time. So Mark, your number 1, please, sir.
Let me try and introduce this by song. Right?
All right.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, I can't remember the lyrics. Put down the Reds. Okay. Yeah, Young Frankenstein, right? Young Frankenstein. I already mentioned this has got
Matt,
class.
can you sing like the introduction from now on, please?
Just do that.
Yeah, just to the show.
Every show intro is going to be...
We're just going to have to loop that one. Sorry, that's it.
There we go.
Yeah, Young Frankenstein. It's just got everything, really, that I love. I really love this film. And it's funny because I sometimes say to my kids, do you want to watch Young Frankenstein? It's like, their faces, what? But man, it just... There's something about it. I think it just reminds me of all those Universal things, all the good stuff in the Universal. Because a lot of the Universal stuff was a little dull, some of those films. But there's something about not the Frankenstein ones, actually. I really do like all the Frankenstein ones. There's something about this film that just hits it every time. Everything works. Marty Feldman is just so funny. But Gene Wilder is really, great as well. I mean, I've already kind of said all this. Everything about it, I love, actually. The music, the cinematography is really good. I don't think we mentioned that. And the writing. I think Gene Wilder... I have a feeling Gene Wilder is the strongest creative force in this movie, actually, and it shows him in his best light, even above Mel Brooks, I think, because I think Gene Wilder wrote it with Mel Brooks, but I feel he's influenced very strongly. I think he brought it down so it wasn't as crazy as like Blazing Saddles or The Producers, and there's nothing wrong with those two films. They're great films, but there's something about the calmness that sits within this film that sort of informs the comedy, and I really like, and I like the fact that we get Marty Feldman not completely off the hook, but in such a controlled, wonderful way that he just, it just makes the film a classic. It's a classic. That's it. It's a 10 out of 10 classic, this film, for me. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it, Frankenstein. Unless you guys want to say it.
It's hard to argue with that. It really is a classic 10 out of 10. No, I would agree. Becky, your number 1.
Well, my number 1 would be Tucker and Dale versus the Evil.
Oh, great choice, too.
Yeah, that is a good choice, yes. Really solid.
Yeah. And we've talked about this at length, I think.
We have.
On the show. but it's comfort cinema for me, for the soul, really. It's meta in the most respectful way. You've got characters that you really care about, and a writer who seems to intimately understand the horror films that we cherish. For example, the scene with the bees. Like, I laughed so hard the first time I watched that I had to pause the film.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah,
So
it is great.
Funny.
And one of the things that's great about Tucker is the friendship, right? The central friendship. That really makes the film work really well.
Yeah, those guys have great chemistry.
I couldn't argue about that being anyone's number one. Really.
No, I couldn't either. And definitely go and check out our archive on that too, because I know we had a lot to say about it, Becky. I think we're both huge fans of that. And, that's one I come back to pretty often as well. It's just, as you say, it's comfort food.
Indeed.
Yeah. Is there a sequel coming? I can't hear things now.
They keep talking about it, but, nothing's been kind of confirmed. But, we've spoken before.
There's a sequel, and then I've heard there's a TV series, but nothing seems to come out.
I hope we get one. I really do. But I do want them to do it the right way and have a proper script and everything. Hopefully it doesn't let the audience down. All right. Well, my number one is going to be one that, I don't know, it might be considered controversial, but it's a film that I love, and it's so over the top in some ways. I feel like that's where the comedy comes from. But at the same time, I feel like... some people might take this the wrong way, so I'm hoping not. So my number one, I'm going to go with Tales from the Hood, which is from 1995. It's actually, it's considered, I think, a drama, like a horror drama, but it does have some intentional funny stuff in there, but also there's a lot of, some very heavy stuff about racism as well. But some of that stuff is just so over the top that it comes off as sort of funny, and I think sometimes it's meant to, but I think at the same time there are times it's also probably not meant to. I don't know. Have you guys seen this?
No, I haven't. And I've heard of it and kind of was intended to get to it sometime, but then I completely forgot about it. And I was kind of... I gasped when you said it because it's like, oh yeah, I never watched that. I didn't realise it had comedic elements though. But yeah, it's one I have been wanting to see. But then it's one of those ones I've meant to watch, didn't, and completely forgot about.
Yeah,
Same.
I will have to hook you guys up with a copy because I don't. It's probably got a remastered version in the UK too. But if you need a copy, let me know.
Well, we've got 3 such sites episodes there.
Yes.
yes, we have.
Absolutely. So this one's fun though. I would say check it out. But also, I guess with the current climate and everything going on, I was like, I don't know if I should choose this one. But then I said, go ahead and do it anyway. So. But I really do.
Yeah, well, no.
I genuinely love this film. Just even the cover is kind of funny because, it has the skeleton with the cool 90s shades on, And if you're a 90s kind of horror kid, I think it'll definitely kind of appeal to you. I will say, though, my mother hated this film. My mother's interesting. She likes some of those true crime series. She can watch those no problem. And I'm the opposite. But I told her, I said, hey, Mom, there's this horror movie you've never seen. And so I put it on, and just because I was curious, the reaction I get, it was not a pleasant one. So take from that what you will.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it's the 5th thing I've written on my list tonight, right?
All right. Well, guys, I think we've covered the greatest Horrody Commas films of all time.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Different types who wear a day coat, pants with stripes, or cutaway coat, perfect fits. trooper, trying mighty hard to look like Gary Cooper. Come, let's mix where Rockefellers walk with sticks or umbrellas in their midst.
And we're back. And so that was some of our favorite Horrody Commas of all time. Definitely a definitive list. So all those we mentioned previously, you guys are going to want to check all those out. And it's going to be a pretty big list for sure. But now, horror comedy is now such a big genre that we just we couldn't help from going a little bit over. So we've got some honorable mentions here, and we're not going to spend too much time, but we're going to spend enough time because some of these films do deserve their proper mention. And so, Mark, you have some honorable mentions.
I do. I'm going to try and skip all the ones we've already mentioned. So there was quite a lot we covered, such as Carol Scream and stuff, but I'm going to mention those. Really like the Monsters movie, Monster Go Home. Becky didn't like that, did she?
Oh, that one was fun.
Yeah. I really like the Addams Family movies, both the Addams Family and Addams Family Values, and I actually quite like the more recent animated one, which was very Charles Addams design.
Oh, I
really appreciated that. Yeah, and I really liked the actual film. I thought it was good. I really like the original Fright Night with Roddy McDowall. I think that's a great comedy horror. And there's another one that's a little more obscure, but same territory, called Vamp, with Grace Jones, I think. In that one, it's set in a strip club where these teenagers go, but they turn out they're vampires. And I do like the fact that the MC's standing there and he's eating, I think, cockroaches like they're peanuts at one point. One that we have discussed on the podcast that I think Luke and I particularly love, we haven't mentioned, is Cockneys versus Zombies. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, man, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. One I watched recent film, this, I really love it. I think is a really good one that I'm going to watch again and again over the years. Ready or Not. Man, this is a good film. If you guys haven't seen it, thorough recommend. It's more of a thriller than horror, but basically a woman who's going to marry into a rich family. Turns out this rich family are not like you and I. They do things a bit different, and it becomes a humans hunting humans movie, which is one of my favourite little subgenres, actually. So Ready or Not, a big recommend for me. Little Shop of Horrors, another musical Horrody Commas. Yeah. So I really like that. Gremlins, I really like.
How did I forget about Gremlins? Good catch there, Mark.
On the next one, I'm kind of surprised. I thought it would come up on someone's list, and it was nearly on mine, but it was edged out. Monster Squad. Really like Monster Squad.
Yeah, me too. That almost made my list as well. I just didn't have room for it.
Yeah, Monster Squad is so good. And in the Goonies versus Monster Squad debate, I'm a Monster Squad guy. Easy choice.
Yeah, me too.
Peter Jackson's first film, Bad Taste. He's got a few films that are really good, apart from Meet the Feebles, which is terrible. But Bad Taste is really, really funny. Yeah. Another 80s one I really like that's kind of forgotten is House 2. I really like House 2. It is on the goofier end of the Horrody Commas spectrum. There's dodos and Cliff Clavin sword fighting from Cheers sword fighting, all that sort of stuff. I really like that one. There's one that hardly anyone met. I don't think anyone's actually seen this except me. I feel like it's one of those kind of films with Anna Kendrick called Rapturepalooza, where Anna Kendrick's stuck on the other side of the rapture. So all the good people have been ascended into heaven, and she's kind of left on earth with all these weirdos. And bizarrely, all the insects talk, but they just insult people. And I just think it's a really fun little film, but it's just an odd film. I really like it. Stop me if you've seen any of these. I want to talk about it. Otherwise, I'll just go on, by the way. Another one I really like, which is one that's meta-referencing in the same way Scream does, is one called Tragedy Girls, where these two girls who are obsessed with slasher movies get their very own slasher so they can work out some stuff. That's kind of fun. Happy Death Day, I really liked. It's a kind of horror version of Groundhog Day. That
was
one I really
good.
like. There's a sequel which is okay, but not as good as the first one. The first one really works for me in a good way. Another one which some people would debate whether it's comedy, but it clearly is to me, is American Psycho. This one cracks me up, and it really
Have you read
shouldn't.
the book?
No, the book's awful.
Well,
Hate the book.
that's the thing.
Hate the book.
Well, I just found that really interesting, the difference between the book and the film.
Yeah, the film is a thorough comedy. The book is just unpleasant and horrible. I've only ever thrown 2 books across the room in disgust, and American Psycho is one of them. In fact, I'm quite a fan of American Psycho 2, but everyone puts it on their worst film ever lists. But I actually quite like it. It's Mila Kunis being a psycho, and I kind of like that. Bubba Hotep, I really, really like. Bruce Campbell again, right? As Elvis, of all people.
Yeah, I need to see this one too.
Mummies. That was fun.
Yeah, Anthony Rotolo, our buddy, pointed that out to me a long time ago. He was like, "Oh, you need to see this." So I still
he's right.
He's
He's absolutely right. Yeah, no, it's really worth seeing. It's quite a slow. It's not like a goofy comedy. It's quite a serious look at aging. So in many ways, it's quite a serious film, but it's also fun. The next one is Dance of the Vampires, or also called The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is Roman Polanski's look at Hammer, which I really like. There's some funny elements in that. Another goofy kind of horror comedy musical, again, which is much less known, British film called Anna and the Apocalypse. There's some sequences in this that crack me up no end. They're really funny, but otherwise it's okay-ish sort of film. Okay, I'm going to try and cut some of these out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I really like, and it's clearly a comedy.
Yeah.
And last but not least, alphabetically, this is quite correct, Zombievers. Goofy film. Fun.
Sci-fi original, I believe.
Yeah, I really quite liked it, actually. So, yeah, that's my list. And I'm sweating now. It's such a long list, it's making me sweat. Yeah, that's me.
Too many Horrody Commas. It's a good problem to have. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun, and I have no doubt that in the future, we'll cover many, many more Horrody Comma films. And who knows, maybe in 10 or 20 years, we'll come up with a whole new list and say, hey, now these are the best. But thanks to you both for joining me tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's been great to talk to you guys. It always is.
Thank you. Sorry it's been so long.
Likewise. And we'll be back very soon with more United Nations of Horror. And we've got some good stuff in the works, too, including some remastered episodes coming out. So look for those in your feed and much more very soon.